Darrell Robinson is left outside of the top 10 on On3's rankings of new transfer portal running backs.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Ben Taylor of Auburn Opelika this morning. I was about to shift to your other title, but I'm like, I will just go with Auburn Opelika this morning. So sorry. Joining us as he does every week at this time. So On3, they put out their list of their top 20 transfer running backs. They have Darrell Robinson, the former UConn running back, now Auburn running back, sitting outside the top 10 at number 11. While I think the ranking is fair, I don't think this actually matters, Ben, because I don't think there's any way to possibly know what Darrell Robinson's role at Auburn is going to be this upcoming season.
Well, and you and I have talked before, it's even open-ended because you've got more running backs that are going to be headed to the Auburn locker room more than likely. And
Probably.
we still don't, so we also still don't know second transfer portal if any decide that they may not be as much. So I get it. It looks kind of good. I do look at the 10 ahead of him, and I kind of wonder after looking at his numbers if they may have gotten it right or gotten it wrong. I don't know. I think he probably could have snuck in the top 10 just because I see some of the other teams represented in there. And I just look at some of the competition they may have played. But then again, some people may say the same thing about UConn. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the guys ahead of them, Mekhi Hughes, the former Tulane running back, he goes to Oregon. Like, he should probably be number one. Very clear on Locked On Auburn that I was very high on Ahmad Hardy, who went to Missouri. You know, Auburn hosted him early on, couldn't hold on to him. I think those guys are like the clear tier one. And I think everybody else, it's based off of system and scheme and how their specific talents fit within that scheme. So, like, if you told me that Darrell Robinson wins the starting job, I'd be a little surprised there. But if he got enough of the load and enough touches and targets, however they decide to get him involved in the offense, like if you told me he was the fourth or fifth back in this transfer portal class when it was all said and done, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all, just because I think it's 1A and 1B, and then there's a big drop off after that.
Well, and I couldn't agree more, especially you mentioned system. I mean, him having just a little over 100 carries, just a little less than 1,000 yards rushing on the season at a place like UConn where he probably doesn't have the offensive line that, say, an SEC team does running in front of him, and he may not have the quarterback that's able to air it out to kind of open up the run or vice versa. So, I mean, you kind of wonder how a guy like that will thrive in a system like Auburn whenever he gets here. But then again, that's a packed room that he's coming to, Zach. And we're talking about some guys that have had plenty of opportunity. You've got what I consider the number one running back in the class coming in from Elba. You've got Omar Mapson that more than likely when fall rolls around will be an Auburn Tiger. I don't know how he transitions from, high school to college, both of those guys. But then you got the vets that are sitting in there in the room that are also going to give him a run for his money. So it's an interesting pick that whenever he decided to come to Auburn. But number two, now that running back room is honestly better than I thought it would be with the loss of Jarquez Hunter. I do wonder if he's even a 3 or a 4 spot in the Auburn running back room when fall rolls around.
Yeah, I don't think 4 is an option. I do think 3 is an option. I was surprised. I saw a few different people put out a depth chart after Darrell Robinson signed with Auburn, and I saw multiple put him as the starter. I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think he's the best back in that room. I think he could be, but I think we're making a lot of assumptions if you're going to put Darrell Robinson as the number one back in Auburn's room. I don't love Darrell Robinson as a number one back in an SEC offense. Tell you what, though, I love him as a number 3 back in an SEC offense. So to me, I think a big part of what his potential workload could be, I think it depends on Jeremiah Cobb. I mean, Jeremiah Cobb was used significantly less this past season than I expected him to be. Is that a development thing? Is it they just thought Damari was better than Jeremiah? Is it a scheme and a system fit thing? I don't know. I thought Jeremiah Cobb would be a guy that would be a favorite to leave in December in the portal window. Clearly he didn't. And I can't imagine he'd leave in the spring now at this point. He's got to kind of see like the writing on the wall, at least of where he wants to be in this Auburn offense. And you got to think that they had, several deep discussions with the coaching staff and Derek Nix and kind of say, okay, what's my future in this offense look like? To me, I don't think you keep Damari and Jeremiah if those two guys don't think they're 1A and 1B. And so we saw how limited Auburn was with other running backs outside of Jarquez because Jarquez got all the touches. And we all think he got as many touches as we think he probably should have gotten. And so if you're having to split it between Damari and Jeremiah, like where's the room for Durell in this situation? I just have a hard time seeing it.
Well, I have a hard time. And I want to go back to what you just said about, Jeremiah possibly looking elsewhere. I mean, at this point, like you just mentioned, it would be after spring where he would probably get more of a idea of where he would be. But if he goes somewhere, he's still going to be a 2 or 3 more than likely by this late in the season / system of things. Sure. So if he goes into fall, he's probably going into fall as a 2 or 3 elsewhere. So why not stay where you're comfortable and where you know the system and see if you can work your way up the ladder a little bit, especially from the new guy that doesn't know the system. And I think that he was limited. Zach, I go back to when Jarquez missed a game. I'm surprised we didn't see him a little more there at the first of the season.
Sure.
But I'm not shocked he didn't get the touches he didn't get. Auburn never was up. I told you that he was the kind of guy that Auburn kind of grounds and pounds, gets up by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then the entire second half belongs to Jeremiah Cobb to just punish people. And Auburn was never in that position throughout this season. And I mean, against some lesser teams, yes, but the rest of the time, they had.
You're talking about when Jarquez missed 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just making
Not
sure.
last season, but season before last.
Okay.
And so
we're in that weird spot where, like, when we say this season, like, we're still talking about last season. And so, like, what is last season? But yeah, we're in that weird spot. Yeah.
Hey, and next thing you know, they're going to move signing day from December, like, to August, the previews. Like, it's going to.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do that. I would love it, but I don't know how they do that with, like, coaches leaving and stuff.
It's going to keep messing with us. We're just not going to ever be on the right page at the right time. So this season. This past season, now you got me confused even more. Thanks for doing that, by the way.
I'm so sorry. I just heard people typing in the comments like, Jarquez didn't miss it. I was just getting ahead of it.
No, you're right. You're right. And so this past season, he never was in a position to fill that particular void because we had to have Hunter on the field at all times. And I mean, I said it right here with you. I wanted to see Hunter get 30 touches a game. If not more than that, 30 to 35 touches a game. So that doesn't leave a lot of room for Cobb to be able to get any touches when you got a guy getting 30 to 35 out there. So I think that they have sat him down and they've talked to him and they realize he could be an asset, which I think could honestly hurt Darrell Robinson coming in. But maybe, Zach, maybe that's the conversation they had with him when he transferred in. Maybe they said, look, we're bringing you in because we want you. We got a 1A and we got a 1B, and we need a true 2, and we want you to be that guy. So if we can get out to a 14-point lead, we need you with ball security, being able to get out of the backfield a little bit, and hopefully keep us in a ball, not necessarily keep us in a ball game, but keep us above water while we're already ahead of somebody.
Yeah. So what is the final version of this depth chart look like? Or at least heading into spring? We take our stab at it next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Ben, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Nope.
No, because you're responsible and you like good things. You like the best things. And FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you nail that first $5 bet. $300 to keep the action going. College football's over. NFL is not. We got conference championship games coming up this weekend. We've got the Super Bowl in a few weeks. College basketball, obviously heating up, which is delightful.
Hit the over. Hit the over in the Auburn game. Hit the over.
Yeah, I think it's a good bet.
It's at home.
I think it's a good bet. We'll see. Tennessee's kind of been inconsistent scoring, but I think Auburn's going to score a bunch. So I will not push back on that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first or second listen every single day. This is a bonus edition of the show with the Ben Taylor over at the Auburn Network, as well as Auburn Opelika this morning, his morning show. Go. So when you much cleaner that time. So when you look at the running back depth chart going into spring, we're assuming Omar Mabson becomes a part of this room. He would not be here for spring. But going into spring, I think it's Damari, Jeremiah, Durell, Alvin. And I don't think we need to overthink this.
I'm going to push back on it.
Please do.
I think
boring if we all agreed on everything.
I think it's Damari, Jeremiah, Alvin, and Durell's got to prove himself in order to make his way up the depth chart.
Do you think they're going to put more pressure on Durell proving it than Alvin? The freshman?
Yeah, I think they need to get Alvin the touches and get him in there with the threes and possibly more just because of his inexperience. Yeah, I say that Durell starts out at around a 4. Listen, we could be talking about 1A, 1B, and 2A, 2B, at least in the spring with these guys, because we're expecting Mabson. And honestly, Zach, if Mabson, if that does come to fruition and he is on the sidelines come fall, I'm not so sure Durell doesn't get pushed back even more just because of what we've seen out of Alvin. And I told you, I'm a firm believer. I think Omar is a better back than Alvin Henderson is. So it could be Damari, Jeremiah, and then it could be Mabson, Alvin, and then Durell kind of scout team as bad as it sounds.
What?
Yes.
What? Who gets more touches in 2025? Alvin or Durell?
Alvin Henderson.
What a take. What a take.
I mean, he has been all world coming out of high school. And I think that just the way he's built, his speed that he had breaking away from people, he's got that dog in him. Anytime you talk to him, he just wants to play football. He just wants to hit people.
Sure.
I just think he's hungry, and I think he wants to come up here, and I think he wants to prove a point. And I think the young guy comes out there and makes a push to be in that 3 spot, to be the punisher coming second half when they need him.
I love the take. I love it. I don't agree with it, but I love the take. And I'll make the case that I think if that happens, that's a better case for Auburn, because that's like, oh, okay. Because what's the big knock against Alvin is, he was playing against, a bunch of linebackers that were like 170 pounds or whatever. Can he take that step from playing, was elbow 1A or 2A and going to the SEC? Like, can he take that step? And I think he can. Can he year one? I don't know. No clue. And I think we'll learn a lot more about that in the spring, but dang, Alvin getting more touches and higher up on the depth chart than Durell. That's a take, Ben. I don't agree with it, but man, part of me hopes you're right for sure.
You just said it. I think Auburn is better off with that. I think Auburn is better off in the future with Alston and Cobb not being here the following year. Then you've got Mabson and Henderson that are going to be a 1-2 punch. Then you're talking about a Cadillac Ronnie type deal that we were able to see back in the early 2000s. So I just think that they're going to want to get those two young guys involved to try to get them some confidence moving forward. So they'll stay here, they'll be productive, and be with Auburn for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so I mean, the timing of it's interesting too, because Damari would be gone. He's out of eligibility after the season.
Yep.
Jeremiah would be a senior, so he in theory could come back. So does he want to kind of be 1A if our projection's happening? Then Durell would just be a junior next year. And then you have Alvin and Omar, we assume. And then whoever the running back in this class is, like if they somehow get Derek Cooper, like goodness gracious, that'd be an incredible. You talk about the importance of stacking classes, and this is what it looks like.
Stacking classes, and it can work because we've seen it at Auburn before. I mean, you saw it with Ronnie, with Cadillac, at running back. Brandon Jacobs in that same room at the same time, along with Trey Smith. I mean, if you're talking about
different era of college football,
it was. It was.
Does that work as well if the portal is a thing back then? If NIL is a thing back then, are you able to do that? And also, different offensive scheme. They'd run it a million times a game if it was working back then. That doesn't seem to be how this Auburn coaching staff wants to handle that. So to me, it's like, just because it has worked in the past doesn't mean it's the same thing, in my opinion.
No, but if you got that many horses in the barn, you have to adjust your play calling just a little bit if you're going to have those kind of studs there. Otherwise, they are going to leave. They're going to be a stud somewhere else. And that's not even got anything to do with NIL. You just mentioned it when we started the pod. Got a lot to do with scheme, got a lot to do with the way an offense is run.
Yeah.
And so if they realize that they're not going to get their 15 to 20 touches a game, then they'll go find 15 to 20 touches somewhere else.
Well, that was part of my thing with Jeremiah, why I thought Jeremiah was going to leave. Damari came out pretty early, and he's been pretty vocal about how he's not going anywhere. Jeremiah didn't really do that early on. I do think he eventually put something out about how he's not leaving. But I do know that there was discussion among offensive players of like, why isn't Jarquez getting a larger share of the offense? Like, that was something players were talking about. And I thought Cobb's response to that would be to leave. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And so you have to assume conversations were had. And a lot of people want to point to NIL, whatever. Like, they can get money anywhere. Auburn's not the only school with money. So clearly he has to think that he has a role in the offense because the coaching staff told him that and sold him on a vision, which I think is awesome. I think it's great. I would love a true 1-2 punch between Damari and Jeremiah, because I don't think one of them is way better than the other. I don't. I do think they're both very talented, and I think they're good at different things, which is what a true 1-2 punch should have. Your guy that's kind of in between the tackles is Jeremiah Cobb. He could be anywhere on the field. He could do anything. So I think that 1-2 punch complements each other well. And I think Darrell Robinson's after that. But you have Alvin Henderson after that 1-2 punch, and then Darrell Robinson.
Yep. The thing that probably would hurt Alvin is, I mean, I know we mentioned Elba in 1A school. The thing is, they don't throw it. So I don't know that he's used to catching the ball out of the backfield that often, because I just don't think that they do it at that level. They're just handing it off to him. They're doing like a pitch right, pitch left, as well as try to take him off tackle a couple of times. So that may hurt Alvin coming out of the backfield and actually making plays with the ball in the air, which this offense likes to do, whether it be a screen, whether it be a bubble, whether it be something that's a check down.
Sure.
Now, his athleticism, he may shock the heck out of every one of us. And in spring, it may not be an issue catching the football for all we know, which would further move him up the line ahead of Robinson. So if Robinson comes in and proves that he can be that guy in this type system that is willing to put his hands on the ball when it's put in the air and make a play, then I think that gives him an advantage. But right now, talent-wise, I've got Alston, Cobb, Alvin Henderson, and then Robinson. And that's even before we've seen Mapson whenever fall rolls around. It could be even changed more when that happens. We'll see.
Yeah. Love the take. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. We're continuing the discussion over at thebarnauburn.com, or hit us up on socials. Ben, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
AUnetwork.com. You can also download the Radio Alabama app. We got sports each and every morning, Monday through Friday, just after 7, like Locked On Wednesday, even Top Button Tuesday with our good friend Charlie 5, and even Double D Mondays with Darrell Robinson. So we have got a full slate of things you can go check out. Just go to AUnetwork.com, click on the WANI logo.
Please like the video, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.